Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another match preview. Man City versus Inter Milan, the Champions League group stage, league stage. I'm still not totally got my head around the new format. Let's call it the league stage, as it's one big, massive group with every single team in it. So league stage, let's call it league stage. I think that's what they're calling it. So league stage, game 1 of 8. Because they decided it was a good idea to add more games. So game 1 of 8 of the league stage at home against Inter Milan, who we last played in a Champions League final, and we did win that game. It wasn't easy, it wasn't comfortable, it was very nerve-wracking, and had significantly more on the line than this game on Wednesday evening. I'm doing this on Monday night. I was hoping that the press conference would be Monday afternoon. At the time of recording, there's been no press conference, just a few pictures of training. So in terms of fitness of certain players, who's available, who's not, I don't actually fully know. I'm just going off of how we left last time, which is pretty much everyone. Of course, there's been a doubt over Savio, and Oscar Bob is, still out. Of course he is. But if I'm wrong about any player in this, it's because I've done it before there's a press conference. So I don't know. By the time you're watching this, by the time this goes out, maybe there has been a press conference. Maybe you know better than I do. But when it comes to the predicted 11, which I'm going to get into first, which is why it's on the screen, it could be wrong. But let's start with the predicted 11. Of course, house rules. Before we get started, if you do me a massive favour, and please leave a like on this video, be massively appreciated, and subscribe if you are new. But let's just start with the predicted 11. It's on the screen. I wanted to make sure I could actually get it on the screen. So let's just start with the predicted 11. As you can see, fairly standard. I say fairly standard. It's not. That's a lie. When I did the preview for the Brentford game, the stream, predicting an 11 on that was just so difficult. Because we have pretty much everyone available and fit and ready to use. There's just certain players they're a little bit behind on fitness. There's a few players who haven't played yet or haven't played much because everybody's fit. So there's obviously a few players that are still kind of wanting to shake off ring rust. And with the fact that, Champions League is now, Arsenal's at the weekend, you're looking at Watford being the only game there where you can afford to, really rotate them. We're going to be forced into really rotating there. But when you look at the next 2 games, both are kind of must-wins, even though I know I said in the intro that this game doesn't have as much on the line as the last time we played Inter Milan. You only got 4 home games in the new Champions League format, in the league phase format, and considering it's, best of everybody, it's not just your group, it's every team, and I think it's the top 8 will automatically qualify for the knockout rounds. The next 16 after that, I think it was, were to play some sort of playoff. I don't know. The aim is obviously not to top it. Of course, it'd be nice, but the aim is to make sure that you're in that top 8 set of teams that don't have to play an extra game, don't have to play a knockout qualifier, and you're just straight through to the knockout. So that's the aim, and the best way to do that is to win all your home games. Now, Inter Milan is up first. As you can see by the predicted 11, I've gone with most of these players on the basis of recent performances from certain players, fitness from others. Main ones to highlight there really is Rodri. On at half-time against Brentford. Mostly because Kovacic was on a booking. But of course, he's just so good, and with Arsenal up next, we're going to need him. Not that Kovacic has been bad, but Rodri is just Rodri. And I think that goes without saying. Same thing with Rico Lewis. I know he was also subbed off at half-time, but Kyle Walker, the less said about him, the better, really, at the moment. I'm willing to put Brentford down to lack of sharpness and not playing too much. But that's about it. That's kind of the only leeway I'm willing to give him, because last season he wasn't great. When he's come off the bench this season, so far I've been trusted to start games, it's just been lackluster. And there's nothing to throw Rico Lewis off. Oh, I've kept him in there. I've also kept Stones in there. Didn't think he was great the weekend as well. But again, willing to put that down to sort of ring rust and getting back into the swing of things. Also, Akanji's played every game. So getting him maybe a rest here ahead of Arsenal, because, I imagine he'd play against Arsenal. It'd be a good thing. Diaz come in. He didn't play on the weekend, or he did, but he was subbed on. He didn't start. And then Doku on the right, I think, is the big one. Now, again, I don't know the status of Savio. The last I heard was the sort of day after the Brentford match, the embargoed section of the press conference, going through the quotes, Pep saying that, he was told that it was cramp, but he hadn't spoken to the doctors yet. I don't actually know the extent. That was not a confirmation of what he had. That was just a feeling, I suppose, of what the problem was there. And again, I don't know his status for this game. It's been a bit of a problem to start the season with his injuries. Course off against Chelsea with an injury. Didn't play against West Ham because of an injury. Now subbed off against Brentford with what looks like to be some sort of problem. Whether it is or isn't cramp, again, I don't know. But I imagine that, based on that and, all the training pictures that came out today, I didn't see a single one of Savio. I don't know whether he's going to play this game, and because I don't know and we have other options, I've just put Doku in there. Because again, I don't know, it could be Bernardo out there, Gundogan could play in midfield, Foden could get a game because he's not played apart from a half against Chelsea. But again, I think for Foden, it's still really early. He's only really done a couple of training sessions, maybe, 2 or 3. I think Pep said he'd only done 1 before Brentford, which is why he didn't play. So I imagine that it's more than likely going to be Doku that plays this game. But I really don't know. Again, let me know in the comments what you think. It's hard to predict a team when we've got every single player available, but that doesn't happen often. So it's almost like it's a good problem to have. But in terms of the actual game itself, just quickly, Inter Milan currently sit 3rd in the Serie A after 2 wins and 2 draws after 4 games. Their last match was a draw, I believe, where they just managed to nick it right at the end. Unless I am lying. I do actually have it in front of me. No, it was a draw, and they nicked a goal in the 88th minute. So they're off the back of, I'd say for them, fairly disappointing against Monza, a draw. And again, look, they made it difficult the last time that we played against them. That's what I'm basing this off. I'm not a big international viewer. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watch the foreign leagues. I don't really. Every now and then I may flick on an El Clasico or, a big game. But apart from that, I don't really pay much attention unless it's a Champions League night. And of course, because this is the first set of games, I haven't watched Inter. To be honest, I haven't really watched Inter since, we played them in the final. I may have caught them a couple of times in the Champions League last season. But apart from that, that was about it. They're still under the same manager, Inzaghi. So, look, I'm expecting a similar sort of a game. I'm expecting a similar sort of setup to that Champions League final. Of course, they've got a few different players because it's been, season and a bit. So they've obviously got a few different players in there. No more Lukaku, which is advantage into Milan, given his cameo in the final. But we're also a different side as well. I mean, you look at some of the players. Rico Lewis has played so much of a bigger part to play this season. Doku, he's new. He didn't play. He wasn't at the club. Savio, again, if he plays, he wasn't here. So there's obviously a few differences. But in terms of, stylistically, set up the way I expect them to play, the way I expect the game to go, expect similar. Maybe us to maybe be a bit more controlled in the game, considering it's not a neutral venue. It's not a final. It's not a one-off game. It's a game at home. So I imagine that, we'd be favourites and we'd more likely take the game to Inter, but this is not going to be an easy game. I mean, game 1 of the Champions League phase, I'd say this is as difficult as it's going to get in terms of our Champions League games, just looking at, some of the others, Bratislava, Prague. I mean, I wouldn't go as far, Juventus away potentially, but Juventus aren't the Juventus that they were, 5-6 years ago. But yeah, I'd say this is probably about as hard as it's going to get in terms of Champions League games for us, and it's game 1. So it'd be nice to get this out of the way, but realistically, again, we're at home. We need to win our home games so that there's, less pressure and less urgency on winning away games. And just make sure that at the end of the league phase that we're in the top 8 and that we're not having to play even more games. That's a simple matter of fact in terms of an overview is make, the target is that top 8 section. And again, winning our home games is our best shout. So I'm expecting a win. I'm not expecting an easy game whatsoever. Of course, they play with the 3 at the back, the 2 wing backs, the 2 up top. A bit similar to how Brentford played in terms of just looking at the way they set up in terms of, shapes. The 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, however you want to look at it, right? Similar. And if they do what Brentford did with better players, because Inter Milan have better players, if they do what Brentford did, which Brentford got a lot of success from, we should have been probably like 2 or 3-0 down against Brentford. If Inter Milan come and do the same things, take a leaf out of Thomas Frank's book and do similar things and play a similar way, which they can, if they play like that, then we could be in trouble because, it took us sort of 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, if you want to go off Pep's words, to really find something against Brentford. And Inter Milan, of course, with better players, are more likely to punish us in that regard. So, not an easy game, but we still should be winning this. In terms of score predictions, I'm going to go for a 2-1. Let me know your score predictions down in the comment section below. I always love reading through those, seeing the thought process. I'm going to go for a 2-1. Again, I think it's going to be close. I don't know about how actually good Inter are still, because again, I haven't kept up with them. I'm just going off the basis that they do well domestically, or they have done well domestically for the last few years, and it's not been that long since they last played us. Same manager, same system. So look, difficult game. Should be winning though, because we're at home, and then it's on to Arsenal. But first things first. It's all about getting the job done. Again, we're a bit slow in the start of the season usually, so getting the job done, more than happy with me. If it's dodgy, if it's close, squeaky bum time, don't care. Really don't care. But that's it for this preview. Yeah, let me know all your thoughts on this game in the comments section below. If you do me a massive favour on your way out, please leave a like on this video. It'll be massively appreciated. And subscribe if you are new. And yeah, I'll see you post-match for a reaction.